Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, September 21, 2023. This meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or on the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings or call the Planning Division office. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen. Follow the instructions to access the meeting and press star 9 to raise your hand, indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call?
Chair Rejo.
Here.
Vice Chair Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly. Here. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Here.
Commissioner Sealstor. Here. Commissioner Chavez is absent, and we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead it. Please stand if able, put your right hand over your heart, and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The next agenda item is C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information consent items and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take action on any item presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
There are not.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the consent agenda. With none listed, we'll move into ex parte declarations. Please state any ex parte declarations, and we'll move across the dais. Commissioner Connolly?
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Dr. Lopez?
No.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart?
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash?
None, thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Zilsdorf?
None, thank you.
Thank you. And none from me. The next item on the agenda is Section F, Public Hearing. Let's see. Project 6001 Arcturus Avenue Outdoor Storage Yard Project, Planning Zoning Permit Number 20-500-01, Special Use Permit, and 22-400-02, Coastal Development Permit. Development proposal to construct a parking lot and outdoor storage yard. The 8.7-acre site will operate as a storage facility for containers and cars. The applicant is filed by Tanner Shelton, Jensen Design and Survey Incorporated, Ventura, on behalf of RJN Properties LLC and Hager Pacific in Newport Beach. Will be herefore known as the property owner. Does staff want to provide a summary or additional analysis at this time?
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Honorable Chair. My name is Brenna Wengert. I'm a contract planner with CSG Consultants. I've been assisting the City of Oxnard Planning Department for some time now, and I'm the project planner on the Hager Pacific Storage Yard project in front of you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I'd also like to bring attention to Jonathan Leach, DUDEC Practice Director, who oversaw the preparation of the initial study mitigated negative declaration. And I believe Tanner Shelton of Jensen Design and Survey is present in person in chambers right now. There are other members of the applicant team present tonight as well to answer additional questions. Prior to the commission discussion, I'd like to address a couple of the questions that were received by staff today about the subject project. These questions included some information requests regarding cumulative impacts of the project on past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future projects. There was some information requests about predatory birds and any form of deterrent that may be available for those birds. drought-tolerant landscaping, and exploring ways to prevent light spillover from the project onto adjacent property. Staff advised the commission that they may add conditions to the project as they see fit, and we addressed concerns about the light pollution by directing the commission to conditions that require additional photometric study and restricts the light pollution and spillover. Additionally, we directed the commission's attention to the cumulative impact section of the MND, which is section 2.19 on page 150 of the agenda packet, which addresses the project poses a less than significant impact on the city's significance threshold. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wingart. If there is no objection, we'll have the applicant present at this time. If they have any, does the applicant have a presentation? Okay, thank you. And when you begin, you'll have 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission and citizens of Oxnard. My name is Jason Shern, and I'm a partner with the real estate investment firm Hager Pacific Properties. Our firm specializes in repurposing obsolete and challenged industrial properties, such as the one that we're here to discuss today, located at 6001 Arcturus. When we acquired the property from Arcturus Manufacturing in September of 2021, the site had been shuttered for several years and served as a metal fabrication plant since the early 1960s. The property consisted of a series of old metal buildings which contained large pneumatic hammers that produced loud noises and vibrations. In fact, the plant was known for having the only 50,000-pound hammer west of the Mississippi River. Through our efforts in coordination with the city, the property will be converted into a modern, clean operation that can support the growth of businesses in the Oxnard community and support the Port of Hueneme. We are thrilled that the first user of the property will be Channel Islands Logistics, a subsidiary of Del Norte Distribution, which has long and deep-standing ties to the city of Oxnard. Through this process, we have established a strong partnership with the city. Even before we acquired the property, we held several meetings with city staff members to ensure that our goals align with the city's vision. The project complies with the city's general plan and zoning requirements. We want to thank Joe Pearson and his team for their continued professionalism and commitment in assisting with this project. Our consultant, Tanner Shelton with Jensen Design and Survey, is available should anyone have any technical questions about our project. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. At this time, members of the commission may ask questions of both the applicant and staff. Commission. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Okay. I just noticed that it wasn't in the general plan or in the document. It states that in the general plan, this is not an identified neighborhood. So it meant that we didn't do a community workshop. Was that correct?
Vice Chair Stewart, yes, that is correct. Per our community workshop policies, a community workshop is only held if it is within or adjacent to a general plan identified neighborhood.
All right. Then I noticed that in the packet it talked about trash enclosures, and I saw that they're going to use the old, but they referenced the new. What triggers us going to the new requirement for that?
The redevelopment of the site would require compliance with current trash enclosure standards.
Okay. And I guess my other questions are for the applicant. Okay, I guess when I saw that in there, we were talking about 100 trips. Are the vehicles electric? Are they diesel? What kind of vehicles are going to be making those trips back and forth, bringing containers in?
Good evening, Commissioners. Tanner Shelton with Jensen Design Survey. Thank you, Commissioner Stewart, for your question. At this time, the trips are going to be made using what the tenant has in their inventory. State regulations say that by 2035, a percentage of those vehicles do need to be electric. It's their intention to comply with that standard, but we don't have any specific policy beyond what the state regulations currently are right now.
Okay, and there's one last question. I noticed in there they talked about a steel security fence. Mm-hmm. Is that like wrought iron, or chain link? What's a steel security fence?
It's, the exact specification is on the plan, but it's like a steel wrought iron fence, and there'll be an opaque mesh
Okay.
on that will work out with city staff so that you won't be able to see into the property.
Okay, I saw some of that, but I wasn't clear exactly what it looked
Yeah.
like, so thank you for the clarification.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
And I think I am good.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll move on to Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank staff for answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Anyone else from the commission at this time? I have a couple questions for, I guess the first one would be for the applicant. I don't know who it would be directed to, but I see from the MND that there are quite a few items that are less than significant impacts. Obviously, there's mitigation incorporated. Can I just ask that you're fairly confident that the mitigation efforts there, that you're prepared to do them in the benefit of the surrounding neighbors? I just want to have that on the record that you're familiar and you're able to go with the mitigations put in the MND.
Yes, we are absolutely committed to complying with any mitigation measures that are on the project and conditioned to do so. So yes, we're fully committed to do the mitigation measures spelled out in the M&D. Thank you.
Thank you. This might go to staff or applicant, so I'll just pose the question and either one can answer. I saw that there was a letter from the County of Ventura in regards to the path of travel of vehicles in and out of the property. How and in what manner does it affect the VMT? And are there going to be any significant deviations that would affect the results of the MND, or anything negative or positive, that there would be any changes to the path of the vehicle? I was surprised that they were asking about it, but I'll go on top of it because they asked it.
Yeah, I can jump in here. I think I would defer, Jonathan, if you're available to discuss the VMT. We did provide a copy of the Oxnard truck routes, just to show that those are the available routes that the trucks would be taking to and from the facility. The response to the comments, I'll defer to Jonathan on this.
Thanks, Brenna. This is Jonathan Leach. I was the project manager for preparation of the mitigated negative declaration. And the point with regard to VMT of the facility and the analysis that was performed, ultimately the traffic evaluation determined that the number of overall trips associated with the facility operating as the proposed temporary vehicle storage would be approximately 191 fewer average daily trips as compared to the previous manufacturing tenant of the site. So with a reduction in the overall trips being generated from the site, we would definitely not expect there to be any negative effects associated with the proposed project versus the use that it's replacing.
Thank you very much to both of you. I think that answers my question. And one last one, in regards to the hours of operation, again, I don't know if this is to staff or the applicant. Right now, it's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Oh, actually, now I know how to divide this. To staff, I assume that we're in a position to amend the hours and the days of the hours of operation. Oh, that's a question, sorry, not a comment.
For Chair Orejo, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, the hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Yes.
The Planning Commission is in a position to amend that, correct?
Yes, as long as they were within the scope of what was analyzed in the environmental document. So the document analyzed 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So as long as it was essentially a reduction of those hours as opposed to an expansion of those hours, then it would be consistent with the environmental document.
Okay, so our range of options for amending would be to reduce, correct? Okay, Thank you. Then a follow-up, would there be a possibility that it would keep the 12-hour range, but it could go to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., or the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the strict range that we have to work with?
Chair, I would have to talk to Jonathan with Dudek to see if that would have an impact on any other aspects of the analysis that was performed by changing those hours. So Jonathan, not sure if you, or Brenna, if you'd be able to speak to that.
Sorry, Jonathan's audio is cutting out. I'm trying to get in touch with him. Regarding the hours of operation, though, it's mentioned in the MND for the traffic study. So I think it would be best for Jonathan to answer because he is the expert on the environmental. But let me see if I can get a message through to him if he's not able to hear us.
Okay. Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll allow Jonathan, if there's no objection from the commission, to speak after public comment. Well, if we have any, so at least give him a couple minutes reprieve at this time. Okay. Commissioner Dr. Lopez, thank you.
I have a couple questions. I had many notes throughout, but and I guess question either staff or the party. So in the report said that north of the property, there's an additional truck and container storage. When did that one come into operation, or how long has that been in running? Is that also something that's fairly new?
No, I believe the one, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, the one to the north, I believe, has been there for some time. So okay. Most of those have been operating for a while now.
And so to the east, the report said there was a vacant and undeveloped land with a proposed facility. Is that also in alignment with this project in that it's a port-related proposed project?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez, yes, that one is another proposal which will eventually come before the commission, or actually that one is going to the director. But yes, that is another industrial type use.
And so follow up on that same thread, that table, and I don't even remember what page of the report it was in, but the table itself mentioned that this proposed project, and I guess I want to understand, what is the difference as far as the general plan for this proposed project and the ICD, the industry priority to coastal development? Like, what is that?
So if you're referring to the zoning, it is because this property is partially located within both the inland and the coastal zone. So the coastal portion, there's a small corner of the site that is within the coastal zone. That designation is the industry priorities to coastal development, while the portion that is inland is the industrial limited.
Okay, great. Then that's what I wanted to understand, because it seemed like they're all like at an intersection perhaps, and only this one had that designation. So I wanted to understand what was different about that, and simply that it's closest to the coast.
Yeah, I believe it's the southwest corner of the site is located within the coastal zone. However, the rest of it is located outside of the coastal zone.
So on page 94, and this one's separate and unrelated, but page 94 of the initial study for the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the city, it covers a transportation and circulation analysis. I believe it was table 12 and 13 where it referenced a passenger car equivalent. I was wondering if you could speak to that or explain what that is and the difference between the PCE and non-PCE. I believe there was two designations.
And so Commissioner Dr. Lopez, for that one, I would defer to Jonathan if he's been able to join us. And also, Jonathan, if you can hear us, you might also just be able to dial in if your computer's having issues with the computer.
And while we wait for him, one last question to see if he can come and join us to answer Chair Rejo's question and this one. But my last question was specifically to the county letters that were received. I believe one was from the planning director and the other from the county air pollution control district. I believe in the response, it had been, to a couple of the items that were measured, it responded saying that appropriate measures have been added to the mitigation measure. So was that adopting what this county had expressed, or just prior to the county's letter, it had already been addressed in terms of the mitigation?
I think I can jump in here. The response to comments were after the comments had been received. I believe it was just adding some material to the existing sections that were included.
Yeah, there was another specific, at least for the second one, the letter from the County Air Pollution Control District, and I'm going to try and find it on my laptop as we speak, but it was talking about particles per some very specific measure, and I'm assuming it is polluted related. And so I was just wondering if the response from the city takes into consideration the concerns expressed from the county and included those mitigations in response to the letter from the county. If that makes sense.
It does. Apologies, I'm trying to find the pages.
Yeah, me too, sorry.
A little deep.
I know, it's for the public who may not know, it's 526 pages that we are thumbing through right now.
The county letter?
Yeah.
139.
Page 139. Thank you, Commissioner Colley. Now, let me just get there.
And while Brenna looks for that, I also do want to note that as part of the process for M&Ds and responses to comments, when we prepare those response to comments, we do then send this back to the commenters. So all of the commenters do receive the responses to comments so that they have the opportunity, if their comments are not adequately addressed, to provide additional comments, which we would then present to the commission if they felt that their comments had not been addressed.
Okay.
So these were shared with the county as well as the other commenters on this document 10 days prior to this hearing.
Okay, perfect. I think, yeah, it was comment 3.2 where it was talking about the maximum reactive organic compound content for flat and non-flat, non-specialty coatings. And I don't know what that means in terms of the traffic that will be happening on the site, but I just wanted to make sure that it was addressed and that we are good.
Commissioner Lopez, this is Jonathan Leach. I'm sorry I had lost audio there
No
for
worries,
a little
thank
bit.
you.
I was able to finally get it back.
Awesome.
And in response to this particular comment, the comment was made, it's a new rule specifically related to artificial coatings, basically paint. And there's a new requirement that reduces the amount of volatile organic compounds that are allowed in paint. We have updated the discussion in the MND to reflect that new requirement, and the project would still comply with that requirement. There's actually very little painting that's going to be done on site. I believe, in fact, that the steel fencing is actually powder coated at the factory and then just installed there. So there'll be very, very little architectural coatings applied at the site.
Great, thank you. And my earlier question was in reference to page 94 of the initial study for the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the city, and it referenced a passenger car equivalent, a PCE, and I believe table 12 and 13, and again, I'm going to try and pull it up here, I believe had both numbers that were PCE, the passenger car equivalent, and non-PCE, and so I didn't understand what that difference was.
So in terms of the impact on traffic and circulation, trucks move more slowly. They occupy more space on the roads. And so in a situation previously, there were far greater number of passenger vehicles associated with because they had a ton of employees working there. So in order to convert the traffic congestion potential associated with the old facility where there were a lot of employees and fewer heavy trucks associated with it, those passenger car equivalents of the previous operation were converted into a number that would be directly comparable with the types of activities that are going to be associated with the new facility. So the net change here we see in table 14 of the non-PCE, so those were trucks, and then looking at those converted into passenger car equivalents. The total number of vehicle trips was 191. If you convert them all so that's apples to apples, then you would see that the proposed use would be 118 fewer passenger car equivalent trips than the previous use on site. And that's for containers. And then if you look at vehicle carriers, the non-PCE, so total number of trucks was 161. If you convert those into passenger car equivalents, then it would be a reduction of 58 compared to the previous site.
Okay, great, thank you. And last question to staff would be, just generally speaking, all right, would you say that this project is in alignment or compliance or in the spirit of the climate action adaptation plan that the city adopted?
And to Commissioner Dr. Lopez, this project is what we would find to be consistent, as it is consistent with the general plan, it is consistent with the zoning designation. As Tanner mentioned, there are policies coming down that are going to require additional improvements to the fleet mix of these types of facilities, but as the project is currently proposed, it would be consistent with the city's policies in place.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. And I'm going to go back to my previous question, Mr. Leach, in regards to the hours. I think the part of the question to you is if the 6 a.m., 6 p.m. currently right now, if it's 12 hours, that it could possibly be amended to 7 a.m., 7 p.m. or some other 12-hour format, or if 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the strict range available for the Planning Commission to amend from.
No, that was the anticipated hours of operation. From a noise standpoint, which is the principal concern in shifting around the schedule and residual impacts to neighbors, shifting it from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. up to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you'll probably result in slightly lower potential for annoyance from the neighborhood because your operations are starting a little bit later in the morning and less likely to be disruptive of sleep patterns and other household activities.
Okay, if I heard you correctly, you said possibly shifting to a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. would lower possible negative effects to surrounding neighbors. Did I hear you correctly on that?
So there could be a negligible decrease by not having operations in the 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. period in the morning. If anything, that's likely going to be a marginal benefit to the project as compared to what's proposed. So you would not have to change any conclusions in the MND if you wanted to shift operating hours to the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. period.
And I apologize, my last lingering is that we are able to, because I think there was discussion that we aren't able to move the hours. Is that correct?
Sorry, is that a question for staff or for Jonathan?
For staff. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe, so long as, it's within the scope of like the environmental review, and is with the discussion with the applicant. Joe, would you agree?
Yeah, so Chair Rejo, as long as it wouldn't cause issues with the environmental document, which is why I was looking for input from Jonathan with Dudek, then we could look at shifting the hours and possibly add a condition that would speak to that. And then obviously look to the applicant to make sure that they were accepting of that change.
Okay, thank you. And you did bring up the applicant, and I should pose at least to the applicant, what would be your reaction if the Planning Commission decided to shift it 1 or more hours later and/or to reduce the hours? What's your reaction? Thank you.
I would defer to my clients here, but I do want to point out that the traffic study analyzes 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I just want to make sure that we're good there before we go shifting hours, because I don't want to have a impact and jeopardize the MND that's been prepared. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and appreciate your indulgence on the hours to the commission and staff. I'll save more comments on deliberation. Thank you. Is there any other further questions from the commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
One last question. What I believe it was the county planning director's letter dated 7/25 to Mr. Pearson. Mentioned concern about the lighting, and so does the proposed lighting meet the concerns that the county had to mitigate the potential indirect outdoor lighting impacts? I think that what was sticking out to me was the algae and that it may disrupt algae production, and so I just wanted to make sure that that was addressed for those potential indirect outdoor lighting impacts.
Sorry, I can't see what's happening in the dais, but I can speak to that as well. Of the comments that we received this morning and yesterday evening from commissioners, there are a couple of questions about the lighting. The project is currently conditioned so that it will reduce light pollution and there will be no spillover. And so with that, if there's no spillover of light into the adjacent properties, it would decrease the risk of those impacts.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, just more of a housekeeping question. There have been some questions that have been asked and answered by email and so forth. Do we have all of those answers, or will we cover that a little later on before we go into deliberation?
I'll defer to Joe.
We'll start with Mr. Pearson and then Ms. Wingard if you want to add on to that.
Vice Chair Stewart, so yes, there were comments or questions that were sent prior, and at the start of the meeting, Brenna did kind of highlight those. If there were ones that we want to go into more detail on, we are happy to do that. But she did kind of cover generally the questions and the responses at the start of the meeting.
Okay, just want to make sure I got it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions from the commission, we will move on to the public comment. Madam Secretary, is there any public comment?
None.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is now closed. Are there any closing remarks from staff?
None from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to deliberation. Commission. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. So I do support this project, and I do support port expansion. And I think utilizing vacant sites and brownfield sites in this industrial peninsula is a wonderful idea. But my concerns for this project are basically the same quite a few of the same concerns I had for Project 34. And I'll go over some of those concerns now, and I also have a couple of conditions I would like to have included on whatever motion we make. So I think that we sometimes tend to ignore the fact that South Oxnard is a sacrifice zone. They are and have been for decades. They've been impacted by the industrial uses in this area. And we do have the Ormond Beach Generating Station. We have a container board plant that has its own jet engine turbine generator. We have the wastewater treatment plant. We have a lot of traffic from the port traveling along Wainimi Road and Ventura Road. So every time we increase the pollutant burden, which this project does, even though, you know, we can gloss over the fact, to me it is a cumulative impact, because you can't look at it any other way. We're adding more trips to and from the port. So I just want us all to be cognizant that we should try to do what we can to help the people of South Oxnard. And part of that is moving towards an EV transport system. And I know that there's no policy in place to force that upon the applicant and the port. And I know that EV semis are extremely expensive at this point. But just simply to be good partners, I think it behooves us to move in that direction as quickly as possible. And that is something that you can present to the community, that, hey, look at what we've done. You know, we are interested in being good partners. We do want, you know, we are aware that you've been a very impacted community, and we want to try to rectify that. Also, I don't really see the need to have trees included on this site. I would much rather transition to either a native plant or an extremely drought-tolerant planting palette. Because the trees, not only do they require a lot of maintenance and water, but they also provide a site for raptors to perch and potentially prey upon endangered species that might be in the area just to the west and the southwest under the resource protection zoning areas. So I would like to try to eliminate that. And also, I would like to include a condition that the light standards be modified so as to not allow perching by raptors or other predatory type birds. And that can be something as simple as bird spikes, I believe. There might be other solutions, I don't know. But I want to be, you know, I want this area not to be an area that generates negative impacts for what we want to try to eventually do at Ormond Beach specifically. So I want to include those two things. So I think that really, you know, the landscaping, eliminating the trees, excuse me, and also doing something with the light standards, those would be the total of my comments for right now. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ash. Commission. Yeah, still deliberation. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
You know, I appreciate Commissioner Nash's remarks and proposed conditions there, and specifically speaking to the cumulative or compounding effects on one part of town more than others. I think one of the things that I appreciate, and certainly to the applicant, I think you all certainly found a remarkable, reliable partner in the Port of Wainimi to expand, I think, just their ambitious vision and goals. I think that there is some synergy and alignment that's happening for this country, especially with the historic investments from the federal government to transition us towards a more, I'll say, green economy. And one part of that is obviously transitioning our fleet of vehicles to electric vehicles. That comes through our port, right? And so I too am in support of the proposed project. I particularly wanted to point out the staff presentation on YouTube where it talks about the project furthering a number of policies identified in the general plan, including the infill development, the cluster of industrial uses, as well as business expansion and attraction to parties that provide benefits and livable wages for Oxnard residents. All those things considered, and certainly the steps that are being taken to mitigate both the direct and indirect impacts to the environment and its people. I certainly appreciate the renderings that were included in the staff report, the details for the high security steel fencing, as well as the specifics for the lighting that will be employed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission? Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I like the idea of the project because what's there right now is blight. And so it cleans up the area, provides employment, but I am sensitive to Ormond Beach and some of those issues that Commissioner Nash brought up. So my thoughts are maybe that can be incorporated, some of those. The hours and some of that, I guess if it doesn't mess with anything, I like the idea of shifting the hours, an hour later. So that sounds like a plan. And then I also saw in the YouTube video the objectives, and I think they're all good. But I'm also, sensitive to South Oxnard, but that is where the port is. And there's a lot of things that go on with the port and the area down there. So some of that is just, and I don't want to say the way it is, but, it's where it is, and that's what's going to happen. So I can support this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission? So I'll hark back to a lot of my question time was in regards to the hours. I just feel that 6 a.m. just in general is a bit too early, especially if you're going to go full bore starting at 6 a.m. I just in regards to the travel path, so that was partially in regards to my question, because the County of Ventura was talking about the circulation paths, the trucks going in and out of the property. It just seemed that 6 a.m. is a bit too early, and with the comment that the MND was based on the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I'm letting the commission know that I'm at least proposing either one of two amendments, depending on how further deliberations go, to move the 12-hour time to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or to delay the start time from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. and keep it at the 6 p.m. But I'll wait until a motion is before us to make that. In regards to cumulative impacts, it's every time a project is done in South Oxnard, it's true that a lot of the impacts are, it appears, at least to us in the Planning Commission for the past couple of years, have been industrial. And so I don't want to say that, at least in my opinion, that we're helpless in regards to what type of projects are going to be there, but I think that's for a lot of that impetus should be on the City Council. They talk about that a lot. Redistricting was based on having 2 more council members coming from South Oxnard. And so I think with the Planning Commission already seeing the effects of that, City Council should really take a further look on zoning in regards to that and seeing if they can reduce the negative effects. Whatever planning development or anything else outside of this commission is going to happen. So Not to say that I don't agree with the previous comments, but at least in my opinion, it holds a little bit less weight just from the dais of the Planning Commission. But obviously, I'm not opposed to any action that we might take, and if anything, I would be supportive of that. Those are my comments for now. Thank you. Any others from the commission? And if not, I believe a motion is in order. Commissioner Nash.
So I have my two conditions. How would you want to word your concern about operating hours so I can include that in the motion?
I think in the benefit of the commission, I think if there's no objection that the recommended, at least from the opinion of the chair, is to state the recommended motion as distributed to the members of the public and then amendments, although I'm not preventing you from making your motion right now. And that's partially also because I don't know what I want to make my motion as of at this time.
Okay, great. So my motion would be to include under landscape standard conditions slash landscape special conditions, new condition, condition number 29, all landscaping plants shall be either native or extremely drought resistant tolerant. And I will leave it up to the applicant as to whether they want to go ahead and plant trees, but I would make that a voluntary stipulation. And also under planning division standard conditions, add to condition number 35, light standards shall be modified so as to not allow perching by raptors or other predatory type birds through devices such as bird spikes or whatever the applicant feels would be the best way to handle that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Nash, are you done? Okay. Before I restate the motion as amended and ask for a second, I'm going to ask council, because Commissioner Nash stated that it would be, would any part of what the amended motion that you said be voluntary? Did I get that correctly, Commissioner Nash? What did you say was the voluntary part?
Just as to whether or not, no, I thank you for that. I will clarify that the trees should be eliminated entirely from the landscape plan and just use low-lying plantings, no trees.
So Commissioner Nash, there is a standard that we have that does require the planting of trees every 40 feet. So they would have to have at least that, but I guess other trees in addition to that could be potentially eliminated.
So I'm sorry, can we eliminate that standard as a condition, part of the condition?
So Commissioner Nash, we would need to comply with that because that is a regulation in our ordinance. So they would have to comply with that. They wouldn't have to provide more than that, but the 40-foot would be the minimum requirement along the project frontages.
So what I'm hearing is we can't eliminate that standard.
For the trees, no. We'd have to have at least the 40 feet, or one tree every 40 feet.
Are the trees currently planted 40 feet apart? I didn't notice that, but
I believe they are.
okay. I'll tell you what, because we're making too much out of this. They can go ahead and plant. Trees can be planted, but at the 40 feet standard, and they should be native trees if feasible.
So yes, that'd be acceptable. Again, right now they have more than one every 40 feet. So we could reduce that number, but they would have to just comply with that minimum number.
But do you want to put in the stipulation that the planting should be either native or extremely drought tolerant?
And yes, we could add that condition.
That's the important part. And then was there something else, Chair, that?
I think for the benefit of myself especially, and for the commission, if you could repeat the motion that you would like to propose.
Okay, I move that we adopt Resolution 2023-XX, and then we adopt Resolution 2023-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 25-500-01 with the addition of condition number 29 under landscape standard conditions that trees shall be native species and planted no closer than the design standard of 40 feet, and that the other plantings shall be either native or extremely drought resistant and drought tolerant. And also to the planning division standard condition, we add condition number 35, light standard shall be modified so as not allow perching by raptors or other predatory type birds through the use of bird spikes or whatever other mechanism might be available that I'm not aware of. And I think that would be the whole motion.
It has been moved by Commissioner Nash to adopt a resolution certifying final initial study and MND number 23-01 for 6001 Arcturus Avenue Outdoor Storage Yard Project, and adopt a resolution approving planning and zoning permit number 22-500-01 special use permit and 22-400-02 coastal development permit for an outdoor vehicle storage facility with the two following conditions. One, in regards to the landscape, that the trees shall be of native species and no closer than 40 feet, and that other plantings will be native and extremely drought resistant. The second, under the planning division section, is that it will be modified that there will be no perching by birds. I'll get a confirmation from Commissioner Nash before I ask for a second, if any.
As to the last condition, that would be a section added to condition number 35, that light standards shall be modified so as to not allow perching by raptors or other predatory type birds through the use of bird spikes or other effective mechanisms.
What the chair hears is that number 35 for the second amendment is that it will be modified so that there is no perching by raptors or other with the use of bird spikes.
Other predatory type birds.
Okay. Or other predatory type birds. Okay, that's the motion before us. If there's any point of information or clarification, this is the time to do it. But I am asking for a second if there is any. Seconded by Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any deliberation on this amended motion before us? Commissioner Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I guess I just was missing, we're not gonna do anything with the time.
Yeah, I'm about to do that, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Thank you for that.
My apologies.
Thank you. I move that we amend the amended motion before us to reduce the number of hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., still keeping the days of Monday through Friday. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. The motion before us is the amendment on reducing the hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is there any deliberation on the amendment? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair, for being recognized. So will this entail a new traffic study? That is something we should be concerned about.
So in my opinion, based on the responses I got from staff, is that a new study wouldn't be needed because the MND was based on the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The reason why instead of delaying an hour of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I reduced it on the early side from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Before I turn it back, I'm going to ask staff if I heard that or if I stated something incorrectly in my comments.
Chair Reho, so yes, that is correct. Based on the comments from Jonathan, it appears that that would not cause an issue as long as the hours are remaining the same. So there should not be an issue with making this modification. Just to confirm, is this to be added as a condition of approval on this?
It is.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Is there any deliberation on the amendment before us in regards to the hours of operations? Commissioner Connolly.
So my concern on the time change and moving business to start at 7 a.m. is how that would affect workday travel, as many people begin their days, myself included, around 7:30, sometimes earlier. So I do believe that there is a benefit to beginning at 6 a.m. When it comes to traffic, and I do trust the professionals in this kind of stuff that they did a traffic study and then seeing the benefit from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I do have concerns about that 7 a.m. start time. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. Any others from the commission? Again, I'm going to reiterate from my comments before the motion was put forward is that in general, I believe that 6 a.m. is too early a start in regards to the hours of operation with a lot of traffic going in and out. And so I am still in favor of this amendment. Is there any other deliberation on the amendment before us? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call on this amendment in regards to moving or changing the hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., keeping the Monday through Friday days? Roll call, please. Thanks.
Chair Reho,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
No.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
No.
Commissioner Nash.
If I could get a clarification from staff, I don't quite understand if the chair's motion, amended motion, will necessitate a new traffic study. Just a simple yes or no answer.
So no. Commissioner Nash, no, it would not.
It will not require a new traffic study. Okay, so my vote is aye.
Commissioner Sealstore,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. The motion before us now is the recommended motion as distributed to us. In addition to the first of two by Commissioner Nash, that the trees shall be of native species and no closer than 40 feet, with other planting being native and extremely drought resistant. And the second of the two in regards to number 35, that There's a modification that there is no perching by birds or other raptors in the form of perching spikes. Did I say that correctly, Commissioner Nash?
Yes.
And with the newly passed amendment in regards to moving the hours of operation to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is there any deliberation on the amended motion before us?
Yeah.
Commissioner Connolly.
Just for clarity, and Commissioner Nash, let me know if you disagree, I would like to change resistant to tolerant, just for clarity. Drought resistant doesn't seem like an accurate statement to me. And then changing the 40 feet mentioned into just a general number of trees not to exceed the minimum required by city in case those environmental rules change, so that it would just be kept to the minimum, I think would be a little more widespread, but still meeting the goals that you had mentioned.
Chair, could you please read the motion back so we make sure we get those two conditions correct?
Yes, I believe that Commissioner Connolly requested, and I'll say requested if there's no objection from the commission, to change the First Amendment in regards to the planting, instead of saying it drought resistant, to be drought tolerant. And the second was, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to ask Commissioner Connolly to repeat that.
Number of trees not to exceed the minimum requirement by the city.
And that the number of trees should not
Exceed
the
minimum, yeah,
the
required by city.
minimum required by the city.
And I agree to that wording.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to take that as if there's no objection, instead of a formal motion, if there's any objection from the commission in regards to that clarification of wording, please let me know now. Seeing and hearing no objection, those changes will be put into the amended motion. Is there any further deliberation on this amended motion? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, just for the clarification for the public, for the staff and commission, the amended motion before us is to adopt a resolution certifying final initial study mitigated negative declaration number 23-01 for the outdoor storage yard project, and adopt a resolution approving planning and zoning permit number 22-500-01 and 22-400-02 for an outdoor vehicle storage facility with the following three conditions: that in regards to the landscape, the trees shall be of native species, and the number of trees should not exceed the minimum required by the city. The native planting should be, the planting should be native and extremely drought tolerant. The second is that number 35 is modified, that there are no perching by birds or other predatory species with the use of spikes. And that the third is that the hours of operation are now 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. still for Monday through Friday. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call on that?
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Seelsdorf. Commissioner Connolly.
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart.
Yes.
Chair Orejo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you, applicant. Appreciate all of that. Thank you very much. And now I don't have my script. Oops. We'll move on to study session reports, and with none before us, we'll go into the Planning Commission business. Is there any business to report from the Planning Commission? Commission members? Okay, I'll start. I just want to say my professional thanks to Vice Chair Stewart in chairing the previous meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to go. I did see, I was able to view all of the meeting at a accelerated rate. Thank you, YouTube. I think we're in good hands if ever I am not able to be chairing this meeting. So I appreciate it, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Go ahead.
I'm still going to go, but okay. Thank you again. I just want to say that it does relate a little bit to what the planning commission. So I was at a conference, as I stated before, for the National Association of Parliamentarians. Slightly before that, I was able to reach the credential in my organization called Registered Parliamentarian, of which I actually wouldn't have gotten the confidence to do without the actual knowledge of chairing a committee. The previous 9 years before, it was a lot of book knowledge and observation, but having the chairing experience really gave me the confidence to go test for that. And I indirectly and directly thank everyone in giving me that confidence to go for the testing, and that I'm now a registered parliamentarian, of which I'm extremely happy about. It's something I've been wanting to do for 10 years, and if I wasn't chair of the Planning Commission, I don't know if I would have gone for it. So I really thank the commission members for that. During the conference, we love to talk about what are some bad meetings that happen. I'm glad I'm in a position that I've never had to use this commission as an example of what a bad meeting is. And so I get to use that. One of the principles is that when we talk about an issue, we're talking to the idea, not the person. And so you saw that here, that there were no and yes votes. It's not attacking the person. It's the idea that we're going and we're doing this in the benefit of the citizens and of the greater Ventura County in that sense. During the conference, we went through almost all the rules or all the motions that you possibly do through Robert's Rules, which I hope that the Planning Commission doesn't do for a variety of reasons. We usually do an appeal of a decision of the chair, which I stated that if you disagree with the chair, and this is just education too, please feel free to do a point of order, which you've seen me do many times of previous chair Chavez. And if you disagree with my ruling, you can appeal the decision of the chair. And so we all know, even of a group of 350, 400 parliamentarians, that it's to the decision of the chair, not the chair itself. And so we've done a lot. We've done amendments. We've done secondary amendments. We've done refer to a committee. We've moved the previous question. We've recessed. And so there are a variety of motions. Some that will likely never go because of the nature of our governmental meetings is that we likely will never do a postpone indefinitely. We likely will not call for the orders of the day. There are some things that we are not able to do because of legal reasons, but there are just a variety of things, and you have a great knowledge base for any other meetings that you have in the future. So I really thank you for the knowledge that I've gained, for the confidence that you give me, and that I have yet to use this commission as a bad example of how to conduct a meeting. So thank you. Thank you. Any others from the commission?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
That's all right. Just want to say thank you for the compliment. I'm glad I don't have to run the meeting every time because it can be a bit much. But again, thank you. And congratulations. And I will say this is that, I chair a bunch of different commissions, county and so forth. And I have really learned a lot, under your leadership, more about Robert's Rules of Order that I need to look up and say, oh, wow, we did that. What's that? And so, it's just made me better and stronger. So I do appreciate that. And just a little clarity, it is Dr. Stewart now. So, thank you. So it's been about a month or so, I guess it's been now. So just make folks aware. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. So I see that we're adding a credential every single meeting, so I look forward to the next credential from one of the other commission members by the next meeting. Is there any other business from the Planning Commission? Seeing and hearing none, is there any update from the community development staff? Mr. Pearson.
Hello, Chair Rejo and Commissioners. Couple of updates. So our October 5th meeting will be canceled. We do not have any items ready for that meeting. We do, however, have potential 3 items for the October 19th meeting. A Starbucks, a gas station, and a potential coastal appeal. So we have those items coming up. Also, I just wanted to mention that, as you guys may have seen in the news, we do now have a community development director, Mr. Jeff Pingelli, who has been the city's assistant director, was given the director position. So he is now the community development director, and we're all excited to have him in that role.
Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Pearson, does that mean that he'll be coming to the meetings regularly or just as needed?
So I believe he will come to introduce himself, but he will not be regularly attending the meetings. It will be on an as-needed basis at this time.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Pearson. If there's, okay, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Just a quick question. When we're talking about people coming to the meetings, I know that, prior when I was on the planning commission, we would have somebody from traffic, somebody from public works and so forth. Like when we're doing a traffic study, somebody from traffic just to be here to field questions and so forth. Is that something that goes on or happens, or is that hard to do now?
Dr. Vice Chair Stewart, I'm gonna have to figure out that naming. So that is still something that we can do. We have had them available, particularly if it was a more controversial traffic issue that was being brought before the commission, or if we had received a lot of comments or questions regarding traffic, or our engineering team as well, if there was stormwater questions and comments. So we typically will bring them if we feel that there's a need or a discussion or there's a point of contention that they will need to address. But we don't typically have them available at every meeting, just to give them some time to go home and spend time with their families.
Thank you.
And thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Seeing no further questions from the commission, and if there's no further business, the meeting will be adjourned if there is no objection. Seeing and hearing no objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and good night.